let's start out by doing a few minutes of mindfulness meditation. And everybody knows about that. And so whatever practice you're most accustomed to, let's take a few minutes to settle down and focus on the breathing. For some people, it's easy to do the 9-round breathing. Other people like to count the breath, and other people just like to follow the breath. But the point is to do a few minutes of this practice where we're focusing on our inhalation and exhalation.
You'll need to unmute. You'll need to unmute.
Okay, I'm sorry. It just muted. It muted itself. Sorry. This technology. So again, we after we meditated for a few minutes, which, we want to set our motivation for the practice, and the motivation is the key to karma, isn't it? It's like your intention. Sometimes we use the word intention, motive, almost interchangeably. They're slightly different, but our motivation, as much as possible, our motivation should be something that's virtuous, because that makes whatever that follows, it plants really positive karmic seeds if we're listening attentively to the Dharma, and our aspiration is a good one. And so in Buddhism we have like the basic path in Tibetan Buddhism is broken down into 3 different aspects. One is called renunciation, which is really about having compassion for yourself. It's like this realizing that we are caught or trapped in this crazy cycle of uncontrolled causation that we call samsara. Our mind is out of control. There's specific ways to meditate on to develop renunciation. Like, for example, reflecting on the preciousness of of this life, what we call precious human rebirth, and reflecting on that death could occur at any moment. And the only currency that we can spend on our deathbed is our good karma, are the positive imprints that we put on our mind stream. And then we understand that every action that our body, speech, and mind plants seeds that will ripen in the future. And the vast majority have been motivated in this life by self-cherishing selfishness, which always causes problems. And so the problems, we talk about dukkha and pervasive change, the suffering of suffering and suffering of pain and change, and then pervasive suffering. So there's, we have to come to grips with the human condition that is unsatisfactory before we'll want to be free. There's a saying that if you want to make sure you keep somebody in prison, you just make sure they don't know they're in prison. They'll never try to get out. And until we realize that we are literally in a prison created by our own mind, our own bad habits, we won't have any determination to be free. So that's the first step, is compassion for ourselves. And then the second one, it's a more magnanimous motivation. It's called bodhicitta, or the bodhi mind, or the awakening mind. But it's built on a series of contemplations. We start out with equanimity, where we feel we think of three categories of beings: the stranger, the friend, and the enemy. And we try to develop an equanimous state of mind, sort of level-mindedness, without clinging to the friend or like pushing away the enemy or feeling indifference toward the stranger. We develop a sort of a neutral, equanimous. I like to think of it as equal regard for everyone. And it's, again, this is mind training we're talking about. This is not easy. This is effortful. It's developing bodhicitta. There are two kinds of bodhicitta. There's effortful and there's effortless. This is the effortful. This is where we are. And so then we can meditate on things like how we're all equal. Everybody wants to be happy. Nobody wants to suffer. We're all equal that way. And then the faults of self-cherishing selfishness, which as I don't know about you guys, but I mean, when I realized that looking after number one was actually the cause of all my problems, that was a real eye-opener. But self-cherishing selfishness, from the Buddhist perspective, is the ultimate enemy, and it's in the sense that it causes all of our suffering, and has from the beginning of beginningless time up until this moment. All of our suffering has been created by our own self-cherishing, egocentric mind, and we need to recognize that for what it is. I mean, if you think about the 10 non-virtues: killing, stealing, adultery, lying, slander, harsh, frivolous talk, greed, hatred, ignorance. All of these 10 non-virtues are predicated on this misperception, this misunderstanding that we're the most important one. And what we do is ego projects a false sense of I, and we cling to that. And that's our big problem. And then the opposite of that is cherishing others. So then we began to think about, for happiness, Lama Zopa had a little bumper sticker one time: for happiness, cherish others. And then we practice exchanging self-cherishing for cherishing others, which is a change of attitude. We don't become somebody else. We just began to think about others first. And Lama Yeshe used to say, as much as I can, his version of this was, as much as I can, I dedicate my life to others. As much as I can, I dedicate my life to others. And then the next step would be sometimes called the Great Wish, but it's this wish to become enlightened, to free all beings from suffering. It's just, and Lama Zopa has a way of saying it. It's like, I am personally responsible for the happiness of countless sentient beings. And I'm personally responsible to guide them all from their current state of confusion and suffering and misery, all the way to supreme enlightenment by myself alone, which is like, sounds crazy. But this is the vow that a bodhisattva makes. Bodhisattvas, these spiritual warriors, these spiritual heroes, this is their attitude, realizing that it's not really possible to do, otherwise it would have been done by now. But it's a motivation, it's an attitude that's heroic attitude that speeds up our spiritual progress exponentially. And then from that point, we realize, well, the only being that could actually do that would be somebody that perfect wisdom, perfect compassion, perfect loving kindness, perfect skillful means, power. All these qualities, these amazing qualities, they perfected and eliminated all their faults. That is a Buddha. And the only person that could actually accomplish what we want to accomplish is a Buddha. So we must become a Buddha. We must practice renunciation, bodhicitta, correct view of emptiness, and then generation completion stage of Tantra. We have to take these steps, do these practices in order to accomplish the welfare of universal living beings. So the real goal here is to help others. And the method is one's own enlightenment. I must become enlightened in order to accomplish the welfare of all beings. And so that's the bodhicitta motivation. That's, I don't know if I said this last time, but Lama, again, when I was first introduced to the Buddhism many years ago, Lama Yeshe, who's, I doubt anybody knows him, but he died in 1983, but he was, he used to say, if you're going to meditate for an hour, it's better to spend 59 minutes getting your motivation straight. In other words, setting up this altruistic intention to become enlightened for others. So powerful and so important that it needs to be the focal point of your practice. Everything that happens after that will be much more powerful and virtuous and plant much more powerful karmic seeds with this sort of attitude of universal compassion and wanting to become enlightened for the sake of all beings. So that's kind of where we are, where we need to develop as much as we can some feeling for the words, some feeling for these thoughts. And maybe for some people, it's like crazy, not really, they're not attracted to it. Other people are very attracted to it. And I think it has a lot to do with karma, people's individual karma. But then, yeah. So with that motivation in mind, let's do the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. Sheila, can you put that up, please? And remember, last time we talked briefly that the motivation, again, when we think about doing this prayer, we need to have some sort of dread of what it's like to live the rest of our life with a mind that's completely out of control, mostly out of control, I'd say. And then some confidence that the Buddhas and the Dharma and the Sangha are reliable guides. But we're also taking refuge in our own Buddha nature. We're taking refuge in our ability to gain the realizations of the Dharma and we're taking refuge in our personal ability to become, the Sangha, true Sangha, where we can actually help and support others along the path. So it's not all about taking refuge in things out, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha out there. We're taking refuge in our own, potential for Buddhas, to be a Buddha, to realize the teachings, and to be a guide for others. So with that in mind, we'll, and then of course, compassion is the third point. We do the refuge of bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. And then this is a short mandala offering. Kind of auspicious to do this before any teaching. It's a symbolic offering of everything that's good in the universe to receive the teachings, realizing the great value of the Dharma. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru for continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Radha Mandala Kamyata Yami. Okay. So, Venerable Ravina, again, we're talking about, I was talking about how this course came to be named, like becoming your own therapist. And Venerable Ravina, gracious, what a great name, because, you can talk about anything in Buddhism, because Buddhism, well, actually, the word Kadampa, which is the center that I'm part of, that name actually means, there were a group of really fantastic practitioners in Tibet, many thousand or more years ago, that were called the Kadampas. But the word Kadampa is someone who takes every word of the Buddha's teachings as personal advice to be put into practice. So the Kadampa means is someone who takes every word of the Buddha's teachings as something to be put into practice, to combat our delusions, our mistaken ways of thinking. So, so tonight, I'm going to do two things, I think. There's 8 verses of mind training, and I'm just going to take the last 2 verses and go over these tonight. But I wanted to read my notes. I hope here we go. I took a teaching on the 8 verses of mind training. I think I've had several teachings on it, but this one was about 25 years ago. And so I took my notes and I copied the things that were most powerful for my mind out of the notes. And it's all on one piece of paper. And I've held on to it for 25 years, but I just love it. I've given it to my children, and I keep it at work because I love to read this. And this is like taking these verses, which are a little bit hard to understand, put it in plain English, you might say. So this is excerpts from the 8 verses of mind training, my notes, my editing. I take responsibility for all the mistakes, okay, and misunderstandings. Here it is. Sorry, my sinuses. But I'm going to see an ENT next week. So get that taken care of. If you want happiness in this life, the only possible way is by serving others. Serve even those that attack you. Devote your life to giving others what they want and need. Reality is constructed that way. The wisdom of emptiness, reality, makes this the only logical choice. But that's an interesting point. Let me just say that again. Devote your life to giving others what they want and need. Reality is constructed that way. The wisdom of emptiness makes this the only logical choice. We need to reach the point in our personal spiritual practice where we focus on others' good qualities. In reality, they are swimming in good qualities. This is the first step in taking care of others. Create a special relationship with people who are nasty to you. One good enemy at work is more precious than the Dalai Lama for you. We will learn more from adversity than 10 days of teaching from the Dalai Lama. Look at the people you live with as your ticket to enlightenment. If you cannot get rid of the habit of taking care of yourself first above what others need, you won't succeed in achieving happiness. That's another one that's worth repeating. If we cannot get rid of the habit of taking care of ourselves first above what others need, we will not succeed in achieving happiness. Anytime you have a relationship with someone else, they should come out ahead. Take the loss yourself and give them the gain. To the extent that you're able to do this, give everything you can to others. Make a career of it. Just decide that you're going to be last in line, always last. Try it. This practice can immediately make you happy. Try it for 10% of the day today. Well, the day's almost over, but maybe tomorrow. So some of these things sound a little bit outrageous. You know, when I read them, I go, it's so antithetical to my normal way of relating to the world. And yet every one of the reasons that it's a little bit hard to hear some of these things is that they go directly against our self-cherishing, self-centered mind. They go directly against that. And furthermore, these are mind training. These are the 8 verses of mind training. So not like this is easy. This is hard. This is not easy to do, but it's so powerful. It's so powerful. Robbie Watkins, the center director and good friend of mine, he's also my business partner. Both of us, yeah. Anyway, he, we talk about these things all the time, but about taking care of others and putting them first and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff in here that's hard to hear because, again, it goes against our ordinary way of thinking and of approaching the world. But it is what we need to practice to confront our biggest enemy, which is this self-cherishing attitude. So I'm going to read. Can you put up those 8 verses again, Shayla? I can read them. I've got this little booklet that I picked up in the mid-90s. The Dalai Lama gave a teaching in Washington, D.C. at American University, I believe, on the 8 verses of mind training. And this is from that talk. It's by Wisdom Publications. It's not very big. It's a really cool little book that, if you want to get it, it's so good. But let's read the first 6 verses, and then we'll take a little bit more time with the last 2. All right. So And you can read along with me or read silently, whatever you want to do. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart, hold others dear and supreme. Vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. Now, this next stanza, or this next line, these next four lines are considered to be like the most controversial, hard to get, but also some of the most important ones in the whole 8 verses. It says, when out of envy others mistreat me and insult with abuse, insults, and the like, I shall accept the defeat and offer the victory to others. That's crazy, isn't it? When out of envy others mistreat me, abuse me, insult me, or the like, I shall accept the defeat and offer the victory to others. His Holiness actually clarified that a little bit. He said, we're actually trying to train ourselves to be more selfless and to actually, And so if it is beneficial, I mean, if somebody's going to harm others and continue to harm and create more and more negativity, then taking a powerful stance is appropriate. Let me read what His Holiness said, because on this particular subject, because it's again, it's controversial and it needs a little clarification. He said, however, we're not to suggest that a true practitioner should simply yield to whatever harm or injustice is being inflicted upon him or her. In fact, according to the precepts of the Bodhisattva, one should respond to injustice with a strong countermeasure, especially if there is any danger that the perpetrator of the crime is going to continue negative actions in the future, or if sentient beings are adversely affected. What is required is sensitivity to context, in particular, injustice. If a particular injustice happens and brings no wider consequences to bear upon either the perpetrator of the crime or upon other sentient beings, then perhaps you should let it pass. So His Holiness is saying that, maybe there are situations where we, it's as a way of training ourselves to be selfless. I mean, I remember one time I read something that Lama Yeshe said that, well, if somebody comes to the door and like you've got access to a gun, and somebody comes to the door and they say they're going to kill you. I mean, this was a theoretical question that somebody was asking Lama Yeshe, and Lama Yeshe said, and they said, what would you do? I mean, it's either kill or be killed. And Lama Yeshe said, I would let him kill me, which certainly doesn't sound like the American way to me. But I mean, there's that story of the Buddha when he was the Bodhisattva, the prince, and there was a hungry tigress, and she had like 4 or 5 cubs, and they were all starving to death. And so the Bodhisattva gave his body to the tigress so that she could stay alive to feed her babies. Now, we're not at that level yet, most likely, where we're ready to give up our lives, for others. But that's that's pretty wild. That's pretty high level of selflessness. Somebody who's willing to die for others, and yet people do it all the time. I mean, they're even in the animal kingdom, their mothers, mother like deer, or you can, I mean, wildebeest or whatever, any kind of animal will literally die for their babies. You see it, on the channel. You'll see these mothers will fight to the death with a pride of lion to save their their little baby. So this is not an unheard of attitude, but it's a heroic attitude to have. Right, number 6, when someone whom I've benefited, whom I have great hopes, gives me terrible harm, I should regard that person as my holy guru. Right. Well, that one obviously is talking about looking at. Remember, I read that little piece in there that said, create a special relationship with people who are nasty to you. One good enemy at work is more precious than the Dalai Lama for you. We learn more from adversity than 10 days of teaching from the Dalai Lama. And who else but someone who pushes our buttons, who we trust, but all of a sudden they throw us under the bus. That's either we get angry or we use that opportunity to develop tolerance and inner strength and patience. And so that's what that's about. And the last 2 lines, how are we doing with time? 7:41. So the last 2 are ones, they're kind of cool. The last 2 are very cool teachings on, these are things I think probably all of your experience with, but I'll say a few more words about each one of these. In short, both directly and indirectly, do I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers, and I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. So, in short, both directly and indirectly, do I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers, mother sentient beings, and I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. Well, what is this referring to? Anybody want to unmute and tell me what this is talking about? So who knows, who's heard of Tonglen? Everybody knows what Tonglen is, right? So this is talking about the practice of taking. Actually, it's talking about Tong means giving, and Len is Tibetan word for taking. So what we imagine is that we're giving our happiness, our roots of virtue, our happiness, all that we have that's positive and beneficial, we're giving it to others, and we're taking on their suffering ourselves. I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers, and secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. So, and the word secretly is kind of important here, because it's like it's not like it's mysterious or anything, but it's a powerful practice. It's not something that everybody's actually ready to do. It takes a lot of familiarity and training to even want to do this, to want to give up your happiness and take on others' suffering. You could imagine. But the other point His Holiness makes is that our practice should be very private. We shouldn't be like trying to make a big show of how holy we are and all of this. But it's something, Tonglen is something we can do all the time, like walking down the street or when we're in conversation with people, is we can practice, imagine giving them happiness and its causes and taking on their suffering and its causes. And usually when you do Tonglen practice, you always start with yourself. So you can imagine that you can just visualize an image of yourself in front of you right now. And usually you harness this with your breath, but we may not have time to, well, we can do it in a minute. But you imagine yourself and think to yourself, may I have happiness and its causes? may I have happiness as its causes. So you're wishing yourself well. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease. And the definition of love in Buddhism is the wish that others could have happiness and its causes. So we're practicing, this is practicing loving kindness, okay? And then we imagine that again, we can imagine, if we do this with our breath, we imagine that our body, present body, that light goes out our right nostril and goes to the you in front of you, which is like a hologram sort of, and completely fills you with light. And so the you that you're imagining in front of you gets all of your roots of virtue, all the causes of happiness, all the positive merit that you've ever created. You've just given it to you. And you can imagine how happy you are. And then imagine all of your negativity, the things that you're experiencing now, but also the things that you will, the negativity, the suffering that you will experience in the future. And there is plenty of it coming. You know, we all know we have sickness, old age, and death to experience. I mean, there's no way to get around it. None of us are going to get out of here alive. And so there's challenges ahead. And so we imagine that all of that and the fear and the suffering that revolves around our present and future suffering in the form of black smoke comes in, and we breathe it through our left nostril, and you can sort of gradually have it move, that cloud move toward you, and then you inhale it through your left nostril. It goes into your heart and explodes this this black granite mountain that encases your heart, which is the self-cherishing attitude. The self-cherishing attitude is completely annihilated, and your body is now filled with light. It's the light of all that's beneficial and positive. And so again, we practice, giving, happiness and its causes, the practice of love, right? We imagine that you get it, and then you imagine that you take on your suffering, both present and future suffering, which is, may I be free of suffering and its causes, which is the definition of compassion. And we bring that into our heart and destroys our self-cherishing. So we're practicing loving kindness and compassion, loving kindness and compassion, loving kindness and compassion, in this case for ourselves. And then we graduate to working with people that we're close to. You don't want to go too fast, too far, or too far, too fast. You work with people that you're close to, because it's easy to wish your children or your beloved partner, whoever that might be, it's easy to wish them, may they have happiness in its causes. And imagine sending them light, and they're experiencing that happiness that you've given them, and then may they be free of suffering and its causes, and you imagine that comes in and into your body and destroys your selfish, self-cherishing attitude. And again, easy to work with people that we are close to, but it's important to do that. So you imagine, may you be happy, have happiness in its causes. You can use the Metta Sutra, which is, may you be safe, may you be healthy, happy, and live with ease. And then you think, may you be free of suffering and its causes. And you imagine you take that on. So we practice loving kindness, compassion, loving kindness and compassion. And then gradually we graduate up to people that we dislike, that we feel aversion toward. And it's impossible to do this practice sincerely, wishing people you have aversion toward. You can't do it. You can't. You would just be saying empty words. Underneath in your mind, you go, I hate his guts, or I don't like this person, or they're this enemy. They're just the worst. And but to say, may you have happiness in his cause, is not going to change our mind. So we have to sometimes do a little bit of contemplation and develop at least a amount of equanimity where we're not, where we can realize that, well, this is a label. The so-called enemy could be a friend. It's a temporary state. In past lifetimes, they've been my mother. They want to be happy just like I want to be happy. The harm that they gave me was just the fruition of my own former actions. When somebody hits you with a stick, you don't get angry at the stick. You get angry at the person holding the stick. In this case, they're like the stick. And the cause of my suffering is my own former actions motivated by self-cherishing selfishness. And so you use that kind of contemplation to soften this label that is just this evil person to the point where we can actually wish them, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you live with ease. May you have happiness in his causes. And say it with sincerely from the heart. And then imagine what it must be like to be them. And particularly if they're very unskillful and they've done a lot of bad things, the karma of that and what their life is even like in this moment. We imagine that their negativities, we take that into our heart, and it destroys our self-cherishing attitude. And so we can practice, with many different people, we again, but always starting with ourselves, and then people that are close. We can practice with enemies. And then another powerful way to do this practice, you can also practice with people in all the 6 realms of samsara, but that's a little bit too much for most of us. But one thing that we could do this is a very powerful practice for us to learn how to do to prepare for our death. And this is what I mean by this. Like when you die, imagine you're on your deathbed, and you're either going to be you're going to be freaking out and miserable and dreading, the fact that you're going into oblivion, or you could have a really positive state of mind. You could actually practice Tonglen. You could imagine, for example, that you're taking on the suffering of all the beings in the world, in the universe, really. But we can just think of this world that are dying right now, and the fear and the physical and mental pain that others are experiencing. And imagine we take that into our heart. We take others' suffering into our heart, and it destroys our self-cherishing. And then we send out light from our heart to to all of these beings that are going through the process of, facing their own demise, their own death, and wishing them to have a good death, to die well, to die with peace of mind, to have a happy death, that they can let go and move on to the next life, and not cling to this life and to whatever it is that they cling to. So we can practice, again, on our deathbed, taking on the suffering of others that are dying. Imagine that destroying our self-cherishing selfishness, and then giving others like freedom and happiness and the ability to let go, and we can give them our roots of virtue so that their future lives will really go well. We imagine that we'll give everything. So again, this is the practice of compassion and loving kindness. And it sounds an awful lot like, Jesus on the cross, So that's a very powerful practice, and that's what this is relating. This is this particular stanza is talking about, and it's a very powerful practice to speed up the development of bodhicitta. We'll say that. And the next stanza, the last one, is undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns. May I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. And so, what are the undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns. How many people know? Well, I mean, do people have you heard the teachings on the 8 worldly dharmas? I know Rabina likes to teach on that. The 8 worldly concerns. Well, the 8 worldly concerns are often kind of abbreviated, but it's basically where our mind spends its time when we're being unskillful. Basically, we're all addicted to deliciousness. We're addicted to everything that's good, and we feel aversion toward anything that we don't like. So, for example, so the 8 worldly concerns are, we think of the 4 positive ones. The things that we're addicted to that are deliciousness would be pleasure, gain, fame, and praise. So who would argue with that? We all want that. There's nothing wrong with having those. But the problem is that our mind clings to having these things. Our mind clings to, I said, addicted to deliciousness. We're addicted, our mind, addicted is another word talking about a really powerful attitude of mind that clings to always wanting things to go well and never wanting things to go badly. So to the degree that we're attached to or cling to deliciousness or these positive things, we feel aversion toward their opposites. So the opposite of gain is loss. So we hate losing things, don't we? And the opposite of pleasure is pain. We hate pain because, the more we cling to pleasure, the more we suffer when we've experienced pain. Is it possible to go through life without pain? No. We all have to experience these things. This is all part of life. And then again, fame and disgrace. We all want to be thought well of. And none of us want to be disgraced. None of us want that. We feel, we're attached to, having a good reputation, and we feel aversion toward being disgraced. And the degree that we're attached to good reputation or fame, the more we suffer when we're disgraced. It works that way. So the more we cling to the positive things, the things that we consider positive, the more we suffer when we experience their opposites. So again, there's pleasure and pain, gain and loss, fame and disgrace, praise and blame. And there's no way to get away from the things that are in the right-hand column that we consider to be negative, which are pain, loss, disgrace, and blame. It's all part of life. And yet, if we're cling to the positives, if we're addicted to deliciousness, we will never be happy. Not only will we not be able to fully enjoy the things in life that are pleasurable, like, for example, Buddhism is not saying that having pleasure is bad. Absolutely not. I remember Lama Zopa said, have as much pleasure. Buddhism, the Buddha wants you to have as much pleasure as possible, but have the right kind of pleasure, not the kind of pleasure that keeps you stuck in samsara, but the kind of pleasure that frees your mind. And so we have to give up this attitude that clings. We have to learn to let go. We have to learn to let go and to be present, to be in the moment, letting go, constantly letting go, accepting what is. Because it is all there. We'll have pleasure, we'll have pain, we'll have gain, we'll have loss, we'll have fame, but we'll also have times when people are bad-mouthing us and so forth. We'll have people's approval and we'll have people's disapproval. And it's all part of life, and we'll suffer if we have the wrong kind of attitude, and if we have the right attitude, we can go with the flow. We can learn how to let go. But that's what the first 2 lines are about. The second 2 lines are about emptiness. And let me read about it. Let me read those lines real quick.
Can we go over time and stick around and talk about some of this stuff?
Yeah. And aware that all things are illusory, may they ungrasping be free of bondage. So the attitude of the illusory, the last two lines in here, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. So what is that talking about? That's talking about emptiness. All right. So how do we get to that point? Well, for example, in emptiness, what do we mean by emptiness anyway? And how do we get to the point of seeing things as illusory? Well, our ordinary mind, for example, when we think of ourselves, okay, we project a sense of self, right? You do exist, I do exist, but then we project a sense of self that's beyond the nominal self of just a body and a mind. We call it the five aggregates. There's the physical aggregate of body and the mind, which is feelings, discriminations, compositional factors, consciousness. It's just mind. So we're just talking about these two things that come together called body and mind. And just based on those two things, that's who we are. We label I. But then ignorance takes it a step further and labels an inherently existent, real, truly existent, hardwired I that we cling to. We call it self-grasping ignorance. And we believe in a reified sense of self that is way beyond the nominal self that I just mentioned, that depends upon a body and mind. And so this reified sense of self, or I, is what the Buddha is negating in the view of emptiness. He's saying, I do exist, but that I does not exist. I am empty of that I. That I is a fiction. It's a mistake, and it's the cause of all of our problems. How do I exist? I exist not independently, inherently, in and of myself, but I exist dependently, in dependence upon causes and conditions, parts, and a consciousness that labels. Now you think, well, what's so profound about that? That's just common sense. Of course, I exist in dependence upon parts. I exist in independence upon causes and conditions, the sperm and the egg, the food, all the socialization. There's so many things that have gone into making me who I am. Those are the causes and conditions. And then a mind that labels, the mind that just labels me as an I and labels everything else. Our mind is constantly labeling reality. And that's easy to see. But what's hard to see is that this attitude, that this understanding that we exist interdependently, or said another way, Jeffrey Hopkins calls it, and the Dalai Lama calls it, dependent arising, the king of reasoning. We exist in dependence upon causes and conditions, parts, and a consciousness that labels. That is how we exist, which is exactly the opposite of the way we think we exist. That's why it's profound. So that reasoning is used to refute the view of an inherent, independently existent I. So in meditation, when we begin to see that the I that we have clung to our entire lives, this sense of self, is a fiction, and we come out of that meditation and we've done it properly, and then we have some suspicion about how we exist and how everything else exists as well. So we began to see things not as an illusion, but like an illusion. So that's what His Holiness is talking about here. May I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. So when we realize that we have made, that ignorance has caused us to misperceive reality and cause us to cling to certain things and feel aversion to other things, and creates all the suffering. When we see that it's just like an illusion, it allows us to let go. It allows us to it gives us some freedom to let go, seeing all things as like an illusion. And so this is directly pointing to the teachings on voidness or emptiness. And it said when somebody comes out of meditation on emptiness, really a deep, what they call space-like, what do they call it? But it's basically what appears to the mind is empty space, and what the mind's aware of is this view of emptiness. So space-like meditation on emptiness. When you come out of that meditation, you automatically have a different view. When you see things, they don't seem so real anymore. They don't seem so reified and real. It's not so easy to get your goat or to tag you. You don't take things so personally. There's a lot of freedom in that, in having even having an understanding of it, but to actually have a realization of it. That's what's required to achieve nirvana and Buddhahood. That's where the money is. That's where this whole path is eventually going to take us, hopefully. Now, I haven't done a great job of explaining it, but that's what I understand my teachers have told me. So what question, Brent, did you have? Can't hear you. You need to unmute.
Sorry about that. Well, first of all, you've covered a million different things, and it's hard to get all that at one time and have it sink in. And so for me, the experience would have been much better to cover maybe about a quarter of the material or even less than that, and then have time to talk about it in between. There's so many different things going on. So there's a couple of things that
good. That's good feedback. Thank you.
Yeah,
I do have a tendency to try to cover too much.
I've tried normal meditation before, but it's never really worked for me that well. And I discovered a technique for meditating that works really incredibly, and it relates to the topic we were going to talk about here, which is you can be your own therapist. I think was what it's about, and that I relate to because that's exactly what I see myself as. And the technique is simply to not seek emptiness, but to seek what's going on in the present moment that's important to me. So I'll start talking to myself out loud about what I'm feeling in the present moment, what's going on with me in the present moment, and that leads to words coming out of my mouth, going back into my ear, and then I'm commenting on the comments, and this feedback loop starts up. And it holds my attention because my mind is slowed down I'm speaking words that keeps the mind from going all over the map. And the focus of my attention is on that. And so I'm one with the feelings as they're arising in my consciousness in the present moment, which is as close as you can get to the now, right? So then I just speak about what I'm feeling. And I find that technique works for me as a meditative practice. So I'm actually engaging the current moments of feelings and thoughts, rather than trying to get away from that stuff and get into emptiness and spaciousness and all that kind of stuff. So that's what works really well for me. And in that process, I realized that, you go to a therapist, and what do? They get you to talk out loud to yourself about what you're dealing with. That's exactly what they get you to do. Why? Well, because you've got to face this stuff. You have to look at it. You have to see how it's affecting your life. You have to be aware of it. And so you're the only source of that for the therapist. And that's all they can do basically is listen to you talk to yourself out loud. And that is exactly what I do. And it works extraordinarily well. And for example, like I see very clearly that the illusion that I'm in when I'm judging other people, when I'm thinking somebody's caused a problem in my life, they've triggered my emotions, like that's an illusion. And it's teaching me that in that moment, I need to focus on what's happening which is my feelings. I'm feeling distressed. I'm feeling not in oneness. I'm feeling my ego's out of control, or whatever it happens to be. And taking a look at that and then asking myself, why is this happening? Why am I feeling this? Now, it's not a pleasant experience. Sometimes it's very frightening. You feel very alone in this process. But I've discovered that when you have a problem that you can't overcome and you just be with those feelings in that moment and be your own therapist, then what happens is you start to see through the illusion that you are trapped in something, because you're not really trapped in anything except the mind stuff. So you see right through that, and you get into a place where you realize that the source of truth is bubbling up from within you, and that we're all one underneath our egos. And you begin to see that clearly and experience that really clearly. So that's the technique I thought I used to get to the truth in the matter. And I see truth as the goal. I don't see happiness as the goal. I mean, I'm not interested in happiness. I'm interested in truth. And I always, when I find truth, it makes me happy, really happy. So rather than seek out temporary pleasures, I just want truth. And that's all I feel that I need, and it always reflects back to me something that I is brand new to learn, that I'm getting a new view on, and that's what keeps me going in this. That's what makes me realize that underneath everything we are all Buddhas. In fact, we're all one. There's just one Buddha, and it's us. And so it helps get through the egos and the separation and thinking that we're different than other people, and we're the same, and all these things that are in between, like species, or between life forms, species. We're not better life forms than anything else that's conscious. Ethnicity doesn't matter, nationality doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter. Roles we play in life and business, roles we play in life and family, these things don't matter. It's what's underneath that, and that's where you recognize that we're all one. And that's the goal in this, is to get into that one mind, that one Buddha. But in order to do that, you've got to face all this stuff that's in your way.
Right. So what practices, you sound like, I've done different practices over the years, spent quite a bit of time doing some Zen practices. You sound like you may have had some teachings from other traditions. Am I wrong, or is that?
Well, I've tried everything. I mean, I've tried books and gurus and drugs and you name it to get to this enlightened place, which, by the way, I don't think there's a place you get to where you're enlightened. I think it's a process that's ongoing and not ending. How would you ever know when you were done? You know what I'm saying? The next moment can tell you something that you don't know already. Right. So that's what I think the goal is. But it's been no particular one. I mean, I've tried all kinds of them, and none of them worked right. None of them did for me what I needed. It was only when I bought myself a digital audio recorder. I took it to spiritual events. I listened to it. There was always this guy present who was there every time. It was me. Yeah. It was Brent. And I really got off in listening to him, because his ego comes out and his arrogance comes out when he's paying attention to what he's doing and what he's saying. And so I came onto this. I just woke up in the middle of this talking out process one day, and I'd been doing it for years. And I realized that process of self-reflection, is what was getting me deeper and deeper into truth.
It sounds like you have found something that works for you. That's awesome. It's the Tibetan Buddhist approach, a little different, but I think it gets to the same place. But it's really set up. It's packaged different ways. But for example, and again, the Buddha had a particular perspective on how to train the mind. And for example, we talk in the Tibetan Center, we talk about the Lam teachings, which is the stages in the path to enlightenment. And they're a series of contemplative meditations and focused meditations, but they're designed in a stepwise way to bring us to the point that I think you're describing now, where maybe you've already reached some really, you're at a good place, it sounds like to me. But not everybody is necessarily in a good place. And so the Lam Rim teachings, which are based on the three principles of the path, renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness, or the three higher trainings. By the way, all of Buddhism starts out emphasizing something very mundane: ethics, just living an ethical lifestyle, not harming others, not harming yourself, and then developing concentration and then wisdom. So there are actually specific practices and contemplations that we do in the Tibetan tradition that are meant to gradually open up the heart, the mind, to get to the place where we can be fully present and open and process whatever's going on without getting tagged by it. And have compassion and have wisdom.
Yeah, everything you said,
time.
I agree with. Everything you read about everything you said. But the problem is, it's like you've got to get to that place on your own. And by on your own, you have to face everything inside you that's illusory, that's keeping you from that place. So you have to work on yourself constantly. And I do this every single day. It's just that the way to meditate has never been helpful for me, because it didn't deal with all my ego and all my control issues and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That has to be faced and seen through. So how do you do that? If you could actually put into practice those things that you talked about today by just deciding to do that, that would be great. But I mean, it takes how many people would you call enlightened on this planet right now? I mean, thousands of years of meditation have been done.
Yeah.
And where's it gotten this planet? There's something else that has to happen for each person to wake up, and each person has to wake up, or we won't be together in this. So it's an individual process for everybody.
Hein has a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, hi, Dr. Brown. It's here. I'm so happy to see you, and thank you so much. And you were right. You saw me last week, and this morning I was at the Kadampa Center, and Keisha Gelek, he's my teacher, and Keisha, I took refuge with him, and then with Keisha Sherab, I renew my refuge with him. So both of them are my daily teacher. I'm so happy that I could join you this morning, and with Shayla and with you this afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you take good care. It's been a long day for you, long weekend. Yeah, take good care. Yeah, I see you next week.
Okay, well, I think this is my last week of this class, but maybe another time. I hope so. Yeah, it's a real honor to I mean, it's really helpful for my mind to be given the opportunity to discuss the Dharma. And I definitely am a beginner. I'm an advanced beginner, but I'm still a beginner. I don't consider myself anybody special, but it is a real privilege to be able to be asked to talk about these things and have to think about them and put them into words. And Brett, what you're saying is really, it is so clear that this is not an easy process. If it was easy, everybody would have done it by now. So we even talk about it in terms of lifetimes, but certainly in this lifetime, it's something that, we really have to learn how to turn our whole life into practice. It's not just something we do 15 minutes in the morning, but it's something we need to be doing
24/7.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the goal. That's the goal. Somebody asked Lama, I don't know if you know the name Lama Ish, but he was the person I took refuge with 40 years ago at Kupan Monastery in Nepal many years ago, and he was the founder of the FPMT. And somebody asked him, like, Lama, we never see you, doing a lot of meditation. What's going on here? They were just curious. And he said, I'm always meditating. He said, my mind is never not meditating. I mean, he just was very present, very aware, amazing human being. He wasn't bragging. He was just talking about how he had transformed his life into spiritual practice, which I think is the goal we're all shooting for. So Jela, thank you for
Can we do a Thanksgiving mandala?
Yeah, let's do that. One of these days, I'm going to get to Santa Fe. I know that none of you guys are there, but I'm looking forward to seeing that beautiful center. All right. So,
Like me too.
yeah, we'll do this again.
This
This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, domed with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun, the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Do we have Shanti Deva's prayer? Dedication prayer? You're muted, Shayla.
Sorry, I'm looking for it. It'll just take me a moment.
Oh, okay. So, Brent, where did you say you lived in Berkeley? Or?
Berkeley, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is Shanti Deva's dedication prayer. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid of a little, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. All right, so yeah, this is this obviously long life prayers for His Holiness, the wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit of happiness in this world, to the incomparable contents of Gatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers, honoring the 3 jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Okay, so this has been very nice. I've seen some different faces along the way, and I wish you all well in your spiritual practices, and hopefully I'll get another invitation one day where we can do another class. I'd love that. And y'all have a good week.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah.